Welcome to the Anti-Noise Experience podcast, Endurance Noise, Random Musings. It's September 26, 2020. Saturday morning, about 9 o'clock here in Bakersfield, California. Just got done with a quick paced walk. Still having the battle of the Englishman versus the Viking, whether I should run or whether I should walk. Right now, walking is winning. I'm actually able to walk faster than I can run, which kind of sucks, but, that is what it is. I'll have to decide what I'm going to do in my race in a couple weeks. I'm actually going to have a real race for the first time since February, run with the Burros, where the Bakersfield Distance Project will be doing the 10-mile race. I don't think any of us are going to run with the Burro. There's also a 26-miler, and if you'd like to join us, get on Ultra Sign Up and type in Run with the Burros, and you can head out there to the desert. I did a race a while back called Man vs. Horse out there, where there are horse riders and runners, and that was a fun race too. So this one you actually run with the burro, and you have to have like old-timey gold rush type stuff. You have to have a pickaxe and a gold panning and stuff like that. So that should be fun. Speaking about some old times, 20 years ago on this day, Stacy Dragila won the first women's Olympic pole vault with clearance of 4.6 meters, 15-1 in front of 110,000 spectators at the Sydney Olympics. Wow, that's 20 years ago. Interesting that it's women's pole vaulting has only been Olympic sport for 20 years. Can't wait till women get to do the decathlon, where they get to have all 10 events instead of the, heptathlon they do right now. Be great to see that. I remember when I was coaching at Bakersfield High, 2006, 2009, women's pole vaulting was really coming into its own, and there were quite a few really good girls vaulting, and later on went on to college and did well as well. So something else that happened 20 years ago was the great race with Gabriel Selassie and the Kenyan, where they came down and the finish was closer than the 100-meter finish in the 10,000. And Jonathan Gault also reminds us that Abdu Ibrahim, who made the U.S. Olympic team this year, finished 10th in this race. So 20 years ago, the guy who ended up making our Olympic squad back in February on the marathon was in the Olympics 20 years ago running the 10K. Pretty phenomenal career. He's, I believe, based out of Arizona, so definitely kind of fun to see him and see how he does in 2021. He'll be like 41 or 42 next year. Speaking of marathoning, Kipchoge says he has a calm mind and is the sign that I am ready. I'm sure he will be, because the London Marathon is coming up shortly. I think it's next weekend. Definitely going to try and hopefully. I think it's going to be on NBC Gold. Just watched the Doha meet yesterday, which was fun to watch. Some really good races. The women's 3,000 was phenomenal, where Jessica Hall from Australia, I think she came in 10th, but she still set a national record. In fact, she set like 2 or 3 national records this year alone. Pretty impressive. On a sadder news, California International Marathon, which is a great race here in Sacramento, early December. The weather can be always kind of funny, but it's kind of a naturally downhillish course. Lots of people go there to run fast. I remember last year watching video where there was just these huge packs, almost looked like a bicycle race of men, and then also the women all in their Nike Vaporflies trying to get Olympic trials qualifying times. And I remember it was pretty impressive just to see 20 or 30 men running together, and then 20 or 30 women running together. And plenty of them got it. But back in April, they didn't think they'd probably have the race, so now people are going to be able to run the race anytime between 2021 and 2023. In fact, speaking of marathons, also I finally got my notice from the Chicago Marathon that they're sending me my refund. I signed up for Chicago Marathon a year ago. It ended up getting canceled eventually, and so they're going to send us refunds because I'm not sure if I want to travel there for it. Then also other news on Jonathan Gault talking about that Doha meet. Another Australian did really well. Stewart McSweyn, he runs 3:30.51 to break the Australian 10 record in the 1500, which was 10 years old. He really had to race kind of on his own. There wasn't much competition. It's his second Aussie record in 9 days, following the 7:28 3K in Rome. And the Australians have definitely been doing well. The Norwegians have been racing great distance, and makes you wish that the Americans had been able to get out of the country and run some of these meets. We had a few sprinters show up, but most of our distance team kind of did these inter-squad meets or really low-key events, so kind of sad to see that we didn't get out there and race this summer, because you definitely need to get in this experience. McSweyn's times this year have been incredible, What's most impressive to me is what Jonathan Gold says, is how he's running in the 3K and the 1500. He is the one pushing the pace and doing the work to make it happen, truly earning those records. And he's getting rewarded, Stewart is, by being in the Chip to Guy's 10,000 world record attempt, which is coming up on October 7th. And it's it's going to be on a Wednesday, and that's going to be where the young guy, Joshua Cheptegei, who broke the 5K record, has been around for 16 years. He's now going for the 10,000 record, which has been around just about as long. We do have one American running. USA's Shadrach Chipchir has been added to the field as well. So hopefully he gets to race. He's not just pacing. Steve Magnus, who I often retweet on Twitter, says, decided not to study much for an exam or skip out on practice for a big game. Under preparation is coping strategy for stress. It allows you to protect your ego because you didn't try. Actually putting forth effort requires being okay, confronting your limits. And I see this all the time when I'm at races and you hear all the people saying, oh, I didn't train, da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, hey, just own your training and, just go for it. And what happens, happens. Don't always just blame conditions or lack of fitness and all that stuff. Hanson Runs tweeted, why do people say I can't eat that? I'm eating healthy. It sounds to me like you're not eating. Keyword in eating healthy is eating. Issue I definitely have over the years. Obviously with COVID, everybody's putting on the COVID. I don't know what it is, the COVID-16 or something like that. I myself gained some weight, but I've been backing off on my training. And I kind of been slacking off on eating. If you follow this podcast over the years, it's called Elephant in the Room. I've tried everything. I've tried keto. I've tried vegan. I've tried intermediate fasting, all kinds of things. I was really big back in 10 years ago when I started getting back into racing. I was probably closer to 300. Got down by doing kind of low carb diet. And I've been at this 250 range pretty much ever since. Did a vegan, got down to like 225, 230, and I was fast for a while, but then I realized that I would go hiking in the following summer after being on it for a year, and it just seemed like I didn't have any red blood cells. Sure, if I had money and or someone cooking for me, I might be able to do that and sustain it, but I don't think that's not going to be happening. I remember watching the behind the scenes on the Carolina Panthers, and one of the guys on the team is vegan, and he had this amazing chef. I think it's his wife was a professional chef, and making all these amazing dishes. And I was like, yeah, if I had people making those dishes for me, I could definitely stick to this. And because it's tough eating. Like this thing says, eating healthy is tough, but it's also expensive. When you go around and you see how cheap other things are, and so I've kind of back to doing kind of the intermediate fasting. It seems to work for me. It's reasonable. It's kind of scary, and it's scary that I can only eat 8-10 hours a day and yet still do 3-4 hours of exercise. Like I just got done doing 2 hours this morning, and I haven't eaten since 7 o'clock last night. And in fact, I haven't going to eat again till I'm going to try and make it till 10. I try to get, they do the 16-8. 16-8 is kind of tough. That means I can only eat from noon to 8. But 10 to 8 is not so bad. And the reason I eat till 8, I know you're not supposed to eat before you go to sleep, is Bakersfield's so hot that you can't really train until the evening. So during the summertime, I have to eat a little later, even though I don't really want to. Speaking of that, Steve Magnus again says, it is the process, not the outcome, that is within your control. And that's definitely what I kind of talk about here. You need to enjoy the process. You need to keep track of the process using apps like Fitbit and Training Peaks. Have a plan, but also be able to modify it like I talked about in the article the other day. But, put in the work, and then the outcome is the outcome. You can't control this. A lot of times, races getting canceled or the weather. Like last week, the Chester and I really wanted to go do the 24-hour/100 ride to walk. But, the air quality was just unhealthy. It was in the red zone, and so we ended up going. We really wanted to go, and others did race, but I'm glad we didn't go. Brad Stuhleberger, another guy I'd like to retweet a lot, often says, pay close attention to how you feel when you do certain things. Eventually you might start to realize the mood follows action. The best thing in some circumstances is to just get started. Also, be kind to yourself. Self-discipline works best when married with self-compassion. And I definitely think that's true. I mean, myself, I've been at this thing since 1979, and I'm always listening to it, and I also just think hey, I get up, I go out, I do my work. Some days are difficult, some days are not so difficult. Some days, like this morning, I went out, just got up a little bit later, went out, Didn't feel very well, but then like I did a 2 mile time trial, and the last mile I felt great, and now I feel really well. And but self-discipline, like I said, with self-compassion, you got to look out for yourself because that's the key. Speaking of some inspiration, Muhammad Ali, of course, always great for some quotes. He says, the best way to make your dreams come true is to wake up. Yep, you need to get out there and do it. And then finish off this podcast, a couple things here. This person wrote, was a coach named Amy Clark. She says, as we settle into fall and adapt to our new normal, whatever that may be, find what works for you and stick with it. Maybe that means getting up before the sunrise to get your daily miles. Maybe it's hopping on the treadmill as soon as the kids get online with their teachers. Establishing a routine early on will keep you from focusing on how and when you'll get your run in each day. While those first few days of early alarms might be jarring to the system, you'll be better off once the day is full swing and you have one less thing to worry about. That consistency will allow you to focus on training for the year ahead. When will our beloved races return? When can we hug our ultra running community again, or any community? Only time will tell. For now, do yourself a favor. Take this time to establish a routine this fall. It'll help you slide into winter months with solid running base, and you'll have a foundation for spring training and that inevitable next race. As I talked about, for us, summertime is kind of our off season, and of course, when the fall comes, the weather gets nicer, and then the winters when the weather's nice and cool and we can train. But yeah, as I often say, it's all about getting a routine. Don't worry about motivation, just have a routine and get things done. So everybody's kind of looking forward to that. And then I wanted to end this article talking about this summer. You may have been out of routine, things going on, the weather, everything, just trying to get adjustments, but now's the time. And this article, they talked about when should you replace your shoes. And of course, there's always kinds of different factors. Construction of shoe, the surfaces you run on, the climate you live in. Says that mostly shoes get 300 to 500 miles, which is basically what I try and get, 400 or 500. And so when do they need replacing? It's kind of like you look at the shoe and you also listen to your body. For years, my left knee would start barking at me when my shoes started giving out. And now my left knee, thankfully, just kind of doesn't bother me as much. But you just kind of feel the shoes started to get dead. And that's what they talk about here, that the tread on the outer soles wear away just as tires on a car and you lose grip. But sometimes that's okay, but what's harder to see is the actual rubber, and it just seems like eventually the cushiness of that just gives way. Midsole becomes fatigued over the course of a couple miles, and then it needs to rebound in between runs to turn its original bouncy state. After a few hundred miles, though, it doesn't bounce back. And that's another reason why I tell people, don't wear your running shoes around town and stuff, because especially if you have a job where you're standing up or walking around, you're going to just wear them out a lot faster. When I was coaching high school, a lot of the kids wore their school shoes to school, which I understand. They didn't really want to carry along another pair and or couldn't afford another pair, but it really did destroy the shoes. In fact, one of the things that with younger people, especially who injuries, I would often, and I tell people even older, if you have an issue where it's only a one leg issue, it's often the shoes, like I was saying with my left knee. So if you're having an issue and always comes up, it's probably the shoes. And I tell people, instead of going to the doctor, go to the shoe store, which my friends who own shoe stores love me telling, and get another pair. In fact, they recommend sometimes if you're quite sure whether your shoes are crapping out on you, go to a shoe store, a running store, and put on a new pair and feel how they feel compared to yours, and you might notice a big difference. I myself, I know I do that. In fact, what I often do is I get a pair that I like, especially if I'm going to be doing a long 24-hour longer race. I usually use the Ultra Olympus. I've been running in Ultras for years now, but I have all different sizes, and not different sizes, all different models for different kinds of running. Like on the treadmill, I wear a real lightweight one, but when I'm doing longer races, I wear the Olympus. And one thing I really like to do is when I go into a big race, have a fairly fresh pair, because your shoes, no matter what you do, they just get a certain amount of grime in them, and there's nothing worse than starting a 24-hour longer race with your shoes just feeling gritty and grimy. I'm not as well off as Michael Jordan. I hear he used to have every game he'd play with a brand new pair of shoes, which would be nice. In fact, I'm sure he gave them away, or so he had at charitable auctions and stuff like that. So, yep, shoes are important because, if you're a runner or walker, that is your main piece of equipment. Everything else is kind of optional you can work with, but finding a shoe that works with a sock combination, especially I myself use Ultras, and Smartwool socks have been since 2014, and had pretty good luck and success with that combination, and I'll keep doing it until it proves me wrong. So, as always, stay healthy, be boring, not epic.